Donald Trump just got nightmare news in a new generic midterm poll, basically the worst midterm poll ever for Republicans, according to state regime media known as Fox. Buried in this article from Fox, you see in the generic polling, Democrats are pulling ahead, and state regime media, they thought they could just bury it in their article, but they couldn't hide their data. A new Fox News poll gives an early look at the 2026 midterms, and you've got to read to like the 5th or 6th paragraph, and here's what it says. The survey shows that if the election were held today in the midterms, 52% of voters would back the Democratic candidate in their House district, and 46% would back a Republican. That's a 6-point edge, which is right at the poll's margin of sampling error. Tell me more, state regime media. The current 52% Democratic support is the highest recorded for either party ever. The previous high was 50% for the Democrats in October 2017. Yeah, you may want to lead with that, state regime media, but I guess that's why you're state regime media. Also, a new Pew poll that came out yesterday has Donald Trump's approval at 37%. 61% of Americans disapprove, the worst in presidential history, essentially. Only 26% support for Donald Trump among the Hispanic community. Only 30% support from adults ages 18 to 29, two groups that reportedly powered his win in 2024. And only 56% of Republicans support all or most of his policies, down from 67% last February. Also, a new YouGov poll says the following. How would you describe the political viewpoint of Donald Trump? 50% say far right, 20% say right, center right 7%, and center 3%. I don't know who the hell says left, but the majority of people view Donald Trump as a far right extremist or very right wing. Now the numbers get even worse from there. If you zoom in on the map of the United States right now, you see all of that red right there. Those aren't red states. The red means negative. Donald Trump has a net negative approval in basically every single state in the United States at this point. And again, you look at Texas, he's net negative 17.2. You look at Ohio, he's net negative 9.2%. Iowa, negative 8.7%. Florida, negative 7.5%. South Carolina, negative 7.3%. Heck, in Mississippi, he's negative 6.9%. Zoom in more. In Arizona, Donald Trump's net negative 16.9%. He's getting wiped out in Arizona. So what is state regime media doing to try to further cover up for Donald Trump? Here's how they describe Trump's economy. They go, we know things are really bad right now, but it's kind of like when you renovate a house, right? Like you have to demolish it and then you rebuild it. Hey, state regime media, most Americans don't know what you're talking about because under Donald Trump's economy, they can't afford a home. They can't even afford rent. But okay, that's what it means to be a builder. A builder is a destroyer. Sounds like it's right out of 1984. Watch what state regime media has to say here. Play this clip.
Sometimes when you renovate a house, you got to make it worse before you make it better. You're going to put a lot of things at play, right? There's going to be a lot of sheetrock laying around. There's going to be nails in the floor.
Demolition.
Right, because you got to demolish some things. I think part of what he's doing is he's doing so much all at once. The first year felt like a lot of demolition. We'll see if 2026 feels like, maybe the new sheetrock going up, the first coat of paint. People like to see that. Let's go.
And then state regime media brings on this guy from Real Clear Politics, and he's supposed to, I guess, help Donald Trump. Not so helpful. Here, play this clip.
That poll is really disturbing. And when you look at a poll like that, you got to dig into the internals and the partisan splits. Throw out the Democrats because they hate him. They'll never give him credit. Look at independents. Look at Republicans, because that's what the Republican Party needs and what Trump needs for the midterms. And 78% of independents think that Trump isn't spending enough time on the economy. That's a huge number. And the economy is The number one issue by an order of magnitude, inflation in the economy is 36%. The next closest thing is like 15%. So a lot of work for the administration to continue to do on the economic front.
And that brings us to Arizona, where the people there are just absolutely fed up at everything the Trump regime is doing, as well as the MAGA Republican representation in various districts there, which seems so antagonistic every day. It's like being attacked by your MAGA representatives, whether it's ripping away health care, whether it is increasing the prices on things with the tariffs against the world, whether it is terrorizing people with masked agents, rounding people up. And the people of Arizona are letting it be known. I mean, let's zoom in on the Tucson area for a second. There's people of all ages who are out there right now. I mean, on every given day, I mean, of course, we hear about the No Kings protests and things like that. But on a day-to-day basis, you've got people out there, protesting against this Trump regime. The photo that you saw there is actually taken from Tucson. And you've seen a lot of these just organic rallies that have been taking place right around Arizona's 6th Congressional District, as well outside the office of the MAGA Republican representative there, a guy by the name of Juan Ciscomani. A MAGA through and through, just pushes through Trump's agenda, doesn't answer questions of his constituents, attacks his constituents all of the time. Let me just take a look and let's show you what's going on, in and around that region. There was a high school in the Tucson region that joined a nationwide walkout based on Trump's ICE attacking people in the community. Let's play this clip.
Led a statement of protest. Next time is your turn. You are the leaders of tomorrow. Call out the injustices like ICE roaming our barrios.
It's great to see young people out there, showing civic engagement. Let's take a look right here. We see protests like this outside of that MAGA Republican Congressmember Juan Ciscomani's district, quite frequently, actually. Here's an example of one that took place several months back. Let's play it. Yeah, and contrast that to, remember back in March when you had like AOC and Bernie Sanders and others doing the Fight the Oligarchy tour? One of the locations they went to was that Juan Ciscomani district, because while he's afraid to speak with his constituents and he runs away from his constituents, I mean, there was a massive crowd in that Tucson area. Over 20,000 people showed up last March to join the Fight the Oligarchy tour in an off-election year showing up. Just take a look at what this crowd looked like. Let's play it.
Hello, Arizona.
That was last March, by the way. And just to give you a sense of who this Juan Ciscomani MAGA Republican guy is, when he was running for office, he would hide from very basic questions. So when his constituents would say, hey, I'm an independent, I want to know where you stand on reproductive rights, he'd have his staff block him and then bring him away so he couldn't answer the question. Look how embarrassing this is. Here, play this clip.
Some questions about the abortion issue, because to be honest, I'm an independent. I'm on the fence. I'm learning, and so I'm looking around at everybody. So my question is, what's your feeling about it? I mean,
they want Laura's calling you.
Yeah, I think she didn't help with the kids. I think they're all
She's texting right now. I was talking to Stan. She's texting. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
And then he runs away. So on the one hand, you have Juan Ciscomani, who's too spineless to stand up to the MAGA Republican Party leaders, someone who cut Medicaid after promising not to, someone who voted against extending the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies, screwing people over, someone who supports the reckless tariffs, someone who engages in massive corruption on a daily basis. And on the other hand, you have the Democratic candidate for Arizona's 6th Congressional District. This is a big race that we need to focus on. And so I want to bring in the Democratic candidate, Jo Mendoza. Jo, great to see you. You're running for the seat, Arizona's 6th Congressional District. I know you're too humble to talk about your background, so I'm going to do it for you. Marine Corps veteran, working mom, daughter of farm workers, running to lower costs for families, former Marine Corps drill instructor. You were responsible for shaping the next generation of Marine officers at Quantico, teaching Marines how to work together. You grew up on some of the same programs that Ciscomani's cutting right now and gutting, like SNAP and Medicaid. And so you come with this human perspective, leadership perspective. It's good to see you, but Ciscomani and Trump and all this MAGA stuff, they've made a mess out of your district. They've really been antagonistic and attacking Arizona, and specifically the 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Ben, for the opportunity. And yes, I mean, what you have shown on the videos is what has been happening nonstop since earlier last year. And look, it's a reflection of how pissed off people are because of the betrayal. You know, he says one thing, does another. He promised he wasn't going to cut Medicaid. And, you know, he even signed on to a letter with other Republicans who were making the same promise to their constituents, and then turned around and, you know, voted for the one big, beautiful bill. And I take it very personal because I am a product of government assistance programs, SNAP, food stamps, WIC, Section 8 housing. I mean, without those programs, I would not be here today. They allowed me to grow up strong, to serve my country for 20 years. And you know, they're saying that these programs are need to be done away with because there is massive fraud, waste, and abuse. And, you know, these are programs that people use because they need a hand up, not a handout. And also the government has failed them. So, yeah, I'm running in this seat because I am sick and tired of being lied to by politicians. I'm a single mom. I have to budget for everything. And, I'm looking at prices and trying to figure out, okay, what exactly, can I cut? And there's a lot of families who are in that same predicament.
Arizona's 6th Congressional District, East Tucson, you've got rural areas, you've got cities, you share approximately an 80-mile border with Mexico. You also share a border with New Mexico, a lot of diversity, a lot of the types of things that Donald Trump attacks. And, being on the border and seeing what's happening and seeing how people are treated, I'm sure you come with an interesting perspective, whereas Ciscomani is basically saying, where do I get my talking points from Club Mar-a-Lago or the Golden Ballroom or the Great Gatsby parties that MAGA's throwing?
Oh, gosh.
That's not really what's going on in your district, though.
No, it really is upsetting. I mean, as someone who served this country for 20 years and did a couple of tours to Iraq and Afghanistan, I don't take national security lightly. And in this district, border safety, border security, and national security are in our backyard. And what we're seeing with ICE right now is this lack of accountability because of their lawlessness. And I will tell you that Ciscomani has been down to the district, down to the border, the district's border, many, many times for a photo op. He in his first term, he was kicking the can down the road, saying that, it was the Biden administration's fault. And he's been in Congress for 2 terms now and still has not done anything except go down to the border with other MAGA Republicans and pose for a photo op. That's not leadership. People want their communities to be safe. I'm a mom. I want my kid to, be in a safe community where, he can go out and outside in the backyard or in the nearest community playground, and I don't have to worry about dangerous criminals. But what we are seeing right now is that these ICE agents are not living up to their oath. They're not trained properly. They've only received about 47 days. I will tell you, as a drill instructor who taught marksmanship, the fundamentals of marksmanship to recruits, I mean, they do not touch a weapon until they understand the safety rules. They understand how to take the weapon apart, how to put it together, how to clean it, how to respect the weapon. And here we have ICE agents who are going out into the civilian sector with 47 days of training. Are you freaking kidding me?
And 47 days was picked as the number because Donald Trump is the 47th president, and that's how they do things in that way, which is like, 47, which just brings me to a broader point that you mentioned. It's like leadership, like a leader doesn't go, how old am I right now? I'm 40. So it will be 40 days. Let's do that. What great propaganda we put out. I mean, you being a drill instructor, being a leader, being someone who served this country, you and I can get into the issues, and we should, and we will in this interview. But like, sometimes I want to take a step back and just say, leaders need to lead. And what's happening from Trump and Ciscomani is this propaganda and these tactics we're used to seeing in countries where we said this can never happen in the United States. But here it is.
I know. It's like we're living in a third world country. I mean, I've been forward deployed to countries who do not have democracy, who, are in authoritarian regimes. And I mean, it's egregious. What's happening here in the homeland, in the US, I never thought that I would see the government and its federal law enforcement agency turn against the American people. I mean, this pattern of misconduct that led to the shooting and killing of 2 American citizens. I mean, it wasn't the first time that they had actually fired a weapon. They had done it several times before, and because leadership did not hold them accountable, they became emboldened and did it again and again. And what is the reason for shooting an American citizen, that worked at the VA? I mean, 10 times they shot this person, 10 times. And that is egregious. I mean, when I was active duty in the military, of course, before we go forward deployed to a combat zone, we have to take extensive training on rules of engagement and the use of lethal force. And I will tell you that even in a war zone, you have to be able to identify clearly your imminent threat. What happened in Minneapolis and has been happening, these folks are exercising their First Amendment to protest.
I interviewed Adrian Fontes. He's become a friend of mine, but I interviewed him a few years back, and he made one of the best points to me. He goes, Ben, I was a marksman instructor in the military. He goes, and before anybody could carry, basically the same type of weapons, a military style one that civilians are having, these AR-15s, but the military grade versions. He goes, there was an extensive book, a manual. There was all of these things that you had to do before you could carry it in the military. And so what Adrian said is, when I'm speaking about common sense gun reform and common sense gun control, all I'm saying is that if in the military you required certain types of training and instruction, why wouldn't we just say civilians who are not training for war should get similar types of instruction? But then at the same time, what we saw in the aftermath of the murder of Alex Pretty, all of these kind of right-wing MAGA people who have been basically saying Second Amendment means you can have AR-15s near schools and do it in ways that make the community unsafe. They said the fact that Pretty had a handgun with a concealed carry permit and did everything the right way, that he deserved to be killed because the Second Amendment means you shouldn't be allowed to go conceal carry at a peaceful protest. And they just, to me, exposed themselves there too. And everything with the Siscomanis and all these people, it's just the height of hypocrisy.
It is. It really is. I mean, they are searching, they are reaching for excuses. And I mean, I think that is there's this lawlessness, there's this lack of accountability. There is this sentiment that we as the American people have to play by the rules. We have to follow the rules, but they can do whatever the hell they want. And that's not how America works. And to your point about Adrian, I mean, he's a fellow Marine veteran. I mean, I taught marksmanship as well. And so everything he said about that is absolutely correct. So the fact that we have this administration, and of course, Siscomani, who has been complicit by being silent, says a lot. I mean, Siscomani has not been pushing back on this administration. He lacks political courage. He's spineless, and he's a puppet. And you know what's interesting is that he votes with the Trump administration 100% of the time. We have 2 Freedom Caucus members here in part of the Arizona delegation, Eli Crane and Andy Biggs, and they do not vote with Trump 100% of the time. So what does that tell you about Siscomani? Is that he's okay with rolling over and doing what this administration asked him to do when we're the freaking ones who are paying his salary? Right. And he doesn't allow us to even come close to his office. I mean, you've seen the protests. Why do you think the protests are out there? Because he's not meeting with anybody. He's not hosting town halls. He's not doing anything.
Let's talk about what your priorities would be if you are elected to be the Congresswoman of the 6th Congressional District. I talked about how Siscomani cut Medicaid, how he voted against the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies, how he's caused massive jobs to be lost in the district, how he supports reckless tariffs. I can go on and on and on. Talk to us about your agenda.
Yeah, my agenda is first and foremost, we need to build that trust with the constituency, with the folks in this district. I mean, they don't trust their representative to do the job that he was elected to do. So I plan on doing that by having town halls. And we have already been out to several parts of the district talking to folks about the things that matter to them. But, accessibility to the person that is representing them in Congress is first and foremost, right? Rebuilding that trust, having difficult conversations. We need to reduce the cost of things. I went to the grocery store the other day in my hometown in Eloy, and there was a can of Similac that was $30, Ben, $30 for a can of Similac. So for mothers who can't breastfeed, which I was one of them, my son's 10 now though, you're going to have to pay $30 for a can of Similac. And Siskamani voted to cut, the funding to WIC and SNAP and food stamps. Then I talked to the cash register, or the cashier who was there at the cash register. And I said, hey, can I ask you a question? And she said, yeah. And I said, what are you hearing from people about, the cost of stuff, about affordability? Like, what are you hearing? And you know what she told me? She said that she works there and she can't even afford a loaf of bread. And so she said, what do you think, what do you think about how the stories? Imagine the stories that I'm hearing from people that don't have jobs or were relying on food stamps and other government programs. Can you freaking believe that?
Yeah, while Donald Trump spikes the football and says that he solved inflation and that everything is great and that Americans have never been better off right now. And it's not just gaslighting. I mean, it's malice. And so before we go, though, I want you to give kind of your final, pitch or your final statement, to the people of Arizona. So we'll have you back.
Yeah.
But for this interview, for Arizona 6th, and to the nation in general, and where can people learn more about your campaign?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be in front of you. One of the reasons that I am running is because I took an oath of service many times when I served this country. And that oath of service was that I would protect this country and the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will do my very best to embody the American values that, that we all used to believe in. And this is exactly what I want to bring to Congress, is we need elected leaders, not politicians, who are going to do right by their constituents, to lower costs, to ensure that everybody has access to affordable health care, and to secure our freaking borders so that our communities are safe. And I ask everyone to join me in this fight. You can learn more about me at joannamendoza.com. Follow us on our socials, Mendoza4AZ. And, join our fight in any way that you can, whether that's volunteering, donating, liking our posts and sharing them on social media. But we need everyone in this fight right now.
Jo Mendoza,
Thanks
Democratic
so much.
candidate for Arizona 6th Congressional District. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.